Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly Facebook Live of the European Training Foundation. As every Wednesday, we are live for our Learning Connect series of interviews with members of the community of learners from the European Union, the neighboring countries, and even widely all over the world. Today's conversation, I have the pleasure to announce, which will be focusing on the theme of digital and the centers of vocational excellence. And it is not by chance that we're having this conversation today. We have two reasons. The first reason is that the digital is one of the themes of the monthly communication campaigns of the European Training Foundation, and namely the topic for this month's campaign, and that the centers of vocational excellence are at the core of this week with a 2 days event focusing on ENE, the network of centers of vocational excellence launched by the ETF, which will take place tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So before going straight into the discussion, I'd like to welcome the distinguished guests of today's conversation. So welcome to Professor Najib Hamouti, Head of Career Center at ESITH from Morocco. Welcome, Najib. Thank you for being with us. Then welcome to Giovanni Crisona, leader at Skillman.eu, Italy. Welcome thanks for being with us, Giovanni.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everybody from Italy.
Thank you. And my colleague, Jose Manuel Galvin Arribas, the team leader of the ENE network at the European Training Foundation. Thanks for being with us, Jose Manuel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
And thanks to all those who are following live. I'm now opening the chat to give a look at who's being connected. If you are connecting on a weekly basis, you of course will know that we are saying hi to all of you, and let us know where you are from and what you would like to ask, and if you would like to intervene in this conversation. I'm sure that our three friends will be glad to take on board your questions. I already see that there's a hello from Monia from Tunisia, who is saying that this is an excellent choice of topic. So we have a warm welcome from our friends. Okay, so let's go straight into the conversation. And of course, here and there, we will make links to what's happening in the next 2 days. So don't hesitate to mention that for those who are following us from home. I'd like to begin with my colleague, Jose Manuel Galvin Arribas, new team leader of the ENE network. So congratulations on your new role. To whom I'd like to ask, what are the centers of vocational excellence and why are they so-called engine for vocational excellence development? Over to you, Jose Manuel.
Thank you, Daria, and thank you all colleagues there listening to this conversation. Well, this question, I think I'm going to profit to marketing the work done by the European Training Foundation. Is well answered in our flagship publication, which is called indeed Centers of Vocational Excellence, an engine for vocational education and training development. We give or try to give answers on the rationales and concept, and also how operationalize the concept of Center of Excellence, which is indeed a concept which is not strictly new, but also this is one of the reasons for which there are many ways of naming this type of institutions, which in some cases are type of institutions or are granted with a status to be named like this. This type of institutions or this status institution, we can say also, take different names depending also on the tradition of vocational education all around the world. It can be named industrial training centers, it can be named industry skill centers, multifunctional centers, or industrial training institutes. There are also some other names like regional resource centers. So, but in the last year in particular, pushed by the way on which vocational education and training is playing a role for socioeconomic and regional development, this concept started also to take form, pushed very much also by the European Commission work on excellence of vocational education. So it's an ambition that is pursued by many countries, in particular also to raise the parity of esteem of vocational education and training compared to other education sectors within a lifelong learning perspective. So this ambition of parity of esteem, to have a good bed, which is another key rationale also pushed many years ago, I would say, from the Lord's agenda, linked also with attractiveness, image of the vocational education. It is also pushed the concept of excellence on the values of the communities, which is, for me, one key one, the culture of continuous improvement on the delivery of vocational education and relevance of the skills for the labor market. I think the innovation is also another rationale behind the concept. I think also the need of learning one from each other. So the good concept shaped many years ago also in our European culture of vocational education, which is peer learning from one to the others and enhance the cooperation in vocational education. Indeed, I think what is behind also the concept of excellence is the approach to partnership. So excellence is not possible without partnership. Excellence is also driven very much by also the so-called, and this is the theme today, industry 4.0 or digitalization or robotization of many activities, which are having very much, are influencing very much the transformation of curricula, or which is so-called also curricula 4.0 with disciplines, you know, which goes from robot technology, cloud computing, virtual reality, smart home systems, and so on and so forth, which are indeed now part of many training programs of Center of Excellence. So Center of Excellence are shaped with these ambitions. Center of Excellence should foster also the formation of local ecosystems, skills ecosystems, which are bringing together the institutions, the universities of applied sciences, the research centers, companies or chamber of commerce, or social partners, employers, regional authorities, the municipalities. So it's also very much linked to what is well known as smart specialization strategies, and so on and so forth. So I hope I answered your question. I can't talk more, but I think I'm going to give the floor to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Manuel. Yes, indeed, although be ready to answer more questions, because I'm sure that I anticipate what the audience is going to ask, because this happened already on the occasion of the launch event last December. And being how can an organization or institution, for example, apply or join the network? Is this open? Is this closed? And maybe at a later stage, it would be also great to give some numbers, because the size is increasing. I mean, the network is growing fast. So it's, I think, of interest for everyone to know also what's the geographic scope. Now, okay, now I'd like to give the floor to Giovanni. I'm sorry, I need some water. A bit of cough from Skillman, like a World Wide Network for Skills with a focus on the advanced manufacturing sector. So from your perspective, Giovanni, what is the added value that centers of vocational excellence are bringing, for example, to digitalization, social inclusion, I'm sorry, or the need to move to more green economies based on skills development?
Thank you very much for inviting me to introduce the Skillman network for skills in advanced manufacturing, like you said. This is always necessary to be underlined because there are many many contacts I do and solicit me to explain that is not any sexual harassment in our name, but is referred to advanced manufacturing skills. So we work to develop, to promote skills, and we have a number of around 600 members in more than 90 countries that covers our purposes, giving this sense of a concrete effort to the vision for the skills for the future. What is the added value that this community bring? First, I think that in the pandemic age, I would say, one important aspect is that the COVE's model, our model of bring together TVET providers with industry leaders and research centers and policymakers at regional level, represents a vision for the societies and for Europe, in particular for us, because we are based in Europe, but we represent 90 countries, so for societies in general, to emerge stronger from the pandemic and to lead the way towards a new vitality. So we have seen that TVET is not something related to acquiring skills for occupations only. We see, even from the last declarations of European Union, that TVET is something more, is for development of personal development, for development of skills that are not only for occupation but for life. So I think this is a switch in the role from the education to TVET. If you think to education, education covers the first part of your life, but TVET in a lifelong learning approach to continuous learning cover the rest of your life until that you need to be in TVET because you need to grow every day of your life and to stay updated, and this call the role that you have for digitalization, for transition to green, etc. So I think that finally added value is a lot. It's a big value that COVES can bring to this debate and to the need to level up the excellence of the VET in general, TVET when we talk with our friends outside Europe. So I think that one important aspect that we have to keep in mind when we reflect on the added value that the centers of excellence can create is really to focus, to put attention to the meaning of TVET, never forgetting that we need to have an ethical impact on what we do. And I think that the COVES finally represent the arena where all the members can contribute, participate, and give efforts for a better society.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Giovanni. I think that what you raised is very relevant to the conversation, also because we're talking very often in these chats on our LearningConnects Wednesdays about the role of skills, as you just said, not only for occupation but for life. For those who are following and are not maybe familiar with the terms that we are using, because we are on a Facebook conversation now, I'd like just to flag that when we use the word VET, we mean vocational education and training. TVET is technical vocational education and training, and that when we talk about COVES or COVS, we talk about centers of vocational education and training. We try our best to limit our usage of acronyms for the sake of inclusion of those who are not maybe that familiar, but this is to sometimes to simplify our conversations. And at the meantime, before giving the floor to Najib, I'd like to say hello to friends who are following us, like Michela from Italy, Karen from India, Tibor from Hungary, Arafat from Palestine, Margarita from Bulgaria again. Then we have Snizhana from Ukraine. So as you can see, it's pretty much a wide geographic audience distribution. And now it's we'd like to move to Morocco with Najib Hamouti. Najib, we're talking about different dimensions which make a center an excellent one, and one side of being excellent is also being digitally fit, mostly even more now in these days. So can you share how ESITH, the center where you are head of career, is tackling the current challenges and is dealing with the needed changes? Najib.
Yes, thank you very much, Daria, for giving me the floor. My name is Najib Hamouti, and I'm head of the career center at ESITH, a school based in Casablanca, which specializes in production management, textiles, and garment and supply chain in general, all these occupations. Your question really falls into the heart of what we are busy doing and busy talking about. And I totally agree with the concept that digitalization is being digital is a part of being excellent. So I mean, the discussion here in our school started before the pandemic, maybe 6 years ago. We started the discussion inside some focus groups, task groups, etc., how we can digitize, how we can get abreast of what is happening around us. And there were a couple of decisions, major decisions. So one of them was totally creating a new program oriented to Industry 4.0, of course, with the necessary investment in terms of hiring new lecturers, hiring and also purchasing equipment for this purpose. And then there was the other side, which is tackling the part of the curriculum design, and hence we kind of looked around us and identified what would be the best to teach in order not to miss the train of digitization. So, for example, including some courses about robotization, ERPs, etc. Because when you look around you, whatever you teach, everything, especially if you are a school like ours, which is oriented toward catering for the needs of many industries, not only the textile industry, but our graduates go also for 25% are in the automotive industry as well. Automotive industry, I'm talking here about equipment makers as well as car manufacturers like Peugeot, the French company Peugeot, or Renault, who have construction sites in Morocco. So there was this work of, if you like, enriching the curriculum with those digitally oriented courses. Then on the other side, suddenly, like everybody in the world, we found ourselves in the middle of a great upheaval. Sadly, it was not good news, but it was a little bit quite challenging for everyone in the world, not only in Morocco. And then we had to speed up, the internal work we have been doing in terms of digitizing more and more. And there emerged a need for also digitizing the way we manage the school. Hence, there were some partnerships with some leading companies which provide solutions for distance learning and digital meetings, etc. So far, I think that it was difficult. Nobody would say that we have done a great job. We did what we could. We saved what you could save in the middle of the pandemic, because we were taken aback, as I said, like everyone in the field of training and education. There was also the issue of, the students' well-being. We had to keep them, if you like, logged in, connected to the school, and there was great efforts from our management here at ESITH, as well as from the teaching staff. Some of the teaching staff, well, let's be clear about it, not everybody is 100% digital, or if you like, technologically savvy. So we organized some training courses for the teachers themselves, because 2/3 of our teachers, they come from elsewhere. Most of them, they come from the industry, and some of them are teachers in the education system. So we had to provide training and to empower these teachers. Of course, teaching them how to use all the tools that we had on our shopping list, which we purchased, because if there is something also that we can talk about here, is the challenge of the budget. We had to invest a little bit in some unpredicted, there was unpredicted expenses invested in purchasing those solutions. So far, I think we are doing well. We are not perfect, but things are improving. And today I got my second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine, so things are improving. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Najib, for sharing, and we're glad that you could get the vaccine, which everybody is waiting for and diligently queuing for their turn. Thanks a million for sharing the perspective of ESITH in Morocco, because and for placing it also at the current times, because it's true that we can make discussions about theoretical environments, but then there has to be a reality check, and that's why it's so interesting to have these perspectives from the ground, and that's why we're very glad to have you here in this conversation. Before going back to the script of questions, I see that there's there's a strong engagement from our followers, and there's hello from Georgia, Gohan from Turkey, so it's expanding more and more, and there's a very interesting questions which I'd like to take on board already now. So we have a surprise in our conversation. So what is the difference between a center of vocational excellence and a regular professional or vocational school? A rather provocative one, which we always like to welcome in the conversation. We can have more replies, but who'd like to break the ice and take this on board for first?
Okay, I can say something.
José Manuel.
Thank you. Well, I think the major difference that is also perhaps outlined also in our research from ETF and experience working with partners here and there in many countries, and this is something also that I wanted to mention now. So about our approach, which is international and not also constrained to the European neighborhood, which is our main mission, or just to cooperate with our European Union partners and member states. It is also about the international dimension, you know, because also we are receiving and we are forging partnership with Africa, for example, you know. So I would say the main difference or the major distinction between us, what it is called Center of Excellence, normal VET school, a normal Tibet school or Tibet institution, should be basically that the Center of Excellence would have normally extended functions. What does it mean? So a VET school normally, you know, it is engaged in initial, even higher VET, you know, which are mostly based on the role of colleges. But also the Center of Vocational Excellence have extended function. What does it mean? The extended function also is a very important one is the networking role. So the Center of Excellence should network and make partnerships also with coalitions which go beyond the normal or traditional way that better schools operate. In some systems, of course, for example, Finland, in Finland, we can say, okay, all the better schools are excellent, you know, which is something that even Finland and we already are cooperating very closely with our Finnish partners there. So basically, the way they tie partnerships and network with the industry, with the private sector in particular, could be considered, let's say, an excellent factor for training delivery and results of the skills in terms of usability in the labor market by graduate. Extended functions also means that in many centers of vocational excellence also, you know, dimension like career guidance, dimension like, you know, tying directly the partnerships with the industry, identification of skill needs in the labor market. So these type of functions, many of centers of vocational excellence are deploying such functions, which normally in the bed network of countries are deployed or by the ministry or by the regional authorities. So let's say in some of the key thematic issues that are surrounding the implementation of BED programs are also shaped by a number of activities or actions that also are conducted with the direct involvement of Center of Vocational Excellence. I think also here the capacity of the autonomous capacity of the Center of Vocational Excellence is very important. So we find in our experience in partner countries that, let's say, the operationalization or implementation of the autonomy status of better schools is diverse that the status implemented by a Center of Vocational Excellence. So let's say Center of Vocational Excellence are granted with, let's say, wider room for doing autonomous operations. So I would say that these are the major issues that are surrounding this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we could say that one of the possible differences is that we go beyond the pure training provision, but also this networking or the capacity to build partnerships. You will be surprised, but we are really overwhelmed with questions. So I'd like to keep on taking them on board. And more particularly, I'd like to take one from Alda, who says vocational training is about practice. How can the practice be shifted online? I'd like to address this to Najib, if possible, since we've just tackled that issue beforehand with him.
This is a very smart question, and I would like to thank the person who asked it for her reflex. Indeed, this is one of the challenges, maybe one of the most difficult challenges that we face in the sense that how can you teach something practical online? So there was there was some efforts in providing the most, and here the role of the trainers is paramount. It's very important because they have to seek tools for simulation, where it would be possible to emulate to some extent what would be done practically on site, and of course nothing. Even if while saying this, it remains that we cannot digitize everything. Students and trainees should have practical work, should go to the workshops, of course respecting distance, social distancing, etc. But on the other side, as the more technology improves, the more we'll find it possible to purchase and to equip ourselves with the simulation tools, which will provide maybe virtual reality or augmented reality, where we can do everything more or less emulating the workshop.
Thank you very much, Najib. And there is also a thank you from our follower who had sent the question. There's another question by David saying that skills for digital are most demanded and useful in this time of hardship and insecurity. We should strengthen efforts to setting up new digital skills and competencies. What concrete plans and project center of excellence have in direction of skills for digital? Giovanni, maybe something you can report from Skillman.
Absolutely, I can. But I was attempted to block and to say I would like to add something about our vision of the difference among the TVET or the ordinary TVET center and the centers of vocational excellence. But if I can merge it with this question, for example, in our activity to promote a leveling up of excellence in TVET among our centers that compose the global COVES network, COVES.eu network that we manage and that interact with your network, the ETF network, EEN network, we promote exchange of best practices, and we promote peer learning activities. We promote exchanges, of course now with pandemia, all these travels are not possible, but we promote study visit and shadowing periods among the various TVET centers or the COVES centers of the network. And for example, we have among our members, we have providers of solutions that, for example, as we will present tomorrow, I don't want to reveal many things, but we have one of our members that provide laboratories for with remote control to allow students to make experiments in remote connection. So the idea is that the COVES are the way to level up the excellence, making collaboration among them, among different countries, among different territories, among different COVES that have different resources that can offer to the other COVES. So in terms of capacity for this digital transition, we think that the peer learning activities are very important, and we try to promote these activities. Then if there is room, I also wish to have the possibility to give our view of the difference among the ordinary TVET center and the COVES. Thank you, Daria.
Thank you so much, Giovanni. There is one interesting comment, a provocative one, but nicely provocative, from Monia, addressing you, Giovanni, saying, as yesterday it was the 8th of March, I have a tease rather than a question about the name of the project Skillman. What about Skillwoman?
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, man is for manufacturing, as I said before, because we think that it's necessary to have an impact in manufacturing sector, because the skills of the future in our regard includes and are mostly occupied by the manufacturing sector. So we promote the gender approach. We think that manufacturing must be promoted very well for the access by women, because there is an underrepresentation of them to the technical professions. But unfortunately, our name is not promoting the Superman, but the manufacturing sector.
Thank you so much, Giovanni, for taking the comment of our friend on board. Actually, there is also a question from Karen in India, which I'd like to raise to Jose Manuel later on. So stay there, Karen. And I'd like to go back for a second to Najib, because we're talking, as also Jose Manuel mentioned earlier on, about this networking role of centers of vocational excellence, so as to make excellence not an exclusive aspect, but rather an inclusive dimension, so that everyone could become ideally excellent. So how do you think centers of vocational excellence can inform reforms of national policy frameworks for vocational education? And would you have any best practice to share from Morocco, Najib?
Very good question. Yes, Darius, sorry. Just to tell you something about what's happening in Morocco in the field of vocational TVET in general, there was a huge dynamic, positive dynamic, which started in 2015, and many things happened, starting from something from, if you like, top-down strategy by the High Council for Education and the Training, which provided or drafted a vision for 2021-2030. And the three pillars of that vision were equity and equality of opportunity, quality for all, and the promotion of individual and society. Then we went to 2016 with another, if like, joint work from the Ministry of Vocational Education and the Moroccan Agency of Training and Vocational Training. And then if you like, we reached the climax of this dynamic in 2019, where a new roadmap for improving the quality of vocational education was presented to the King, His Majesty, the King of Morocco. And this roadmap mothered, if you like, or had an output, which is the launch of which is coming, I mean, of the cities of skills and competencies, which are would be, if you like, complex centers of vocational training and excellence. These, I mean, if you like, if you come back, how centers of excellence inform policy reform, we can say that we have been through process of experimentation, where we have been experimenting some models of vocational education that would be at some different, but also at the time efficient in serving our like three clients, which are the individual, the company, and the corporate world, the industry. Maybe it's a coincidence, but the first case of this reform was in 1996 with the founding of ESITH, the school where I worked, because that was historically the first public-private partnership, which had as a consequence the start of a new school, which is run jointly by the industrials, professionals, and where the government will provide part of the funding, or maybe most of the funding. And this model has been replicated, and we have been replicating it in our country through maybe sometimes a little bit different, not copying the same model, copy-paste model, but sometimes it's a matter of how the sector expresses its needs and what type of schools they need for themselves. So in this sense, we can say that centers of excellence can be a locomotive not only for quality education, but also a locomotive for policy reform. Because what happens at, if like at the first floor of the pyramid can go up and say, okay, let's see, look what happened. We tried this model, it works. So let's make it, let's formalize it, let's standardize it, and let's make of it a model that can be replicated somewhere else.
Thank you so much, Najib. And indeed, yes, I read that your center is the result of this successful collaboration between public and private sector more than 20 years ago. Yes, it's 1996, and this I assume, I'm not an expert, I'm a communicator, but I assume this also partially responds to the point which was made by Jose Manuel earlier on, which is also the focus on preparing people for the skills which are needed by the private sector, by the job market.
Yes.
This is the case. Thank you so much, Najib. As I promised earlier on, and I said, I saw in the chat that our friend Karon from India patiently waited for Jose Manuel to answer his question. Karon is asking Jose Manuel, and this is nice also because you mentioned earlier on the fact that there are possible developments also in Africa. Dear European Training Foundation, your work exists in many parts of the world, and why not in India?
Well, I think this question also could be answered by our director, so not only by me. Well, our action also in Africa is also for the recent developments done in the last political dialogue in the European Union and among member states, and also in the neighborhood policies on the need to cooperate more closer with Africa. And also because from Africa, I have to say also that the European Training Foundation has tradition working with Morocco, with Tunis, with different countries, but also there are others that feel or would feel comfortable working in our network. So, well, with India, what I have to, I only can ask you, answer you is that maybe if you belong to a center of excellence, you can write us and we can see the possibility to incorporate your center or your colleagues from India, because we are open to it. So we are an international network. I hope I answered your question. And thank you for the question.
I think you did, Jose Manuel, and I think it's very interesting that these conversations are followed also from professionals from countries which are a bit further away than the closest EU neighbors. I've seen that there are comments also from Hong Kong, for example. So, like Jose Manuel just mentioned, just go give a look at the European Training Foundation website on the page of the NN network. And should you want to have any further information or a possibility of creating closer ties with us, you can drop us a line. We're always answering emails and happy to have a conversation with you. And the idea at the basis of these digital conversations on Facebook is precisely that this sharing exercise has absolutely no borders. This is precisely what we are doing in this very, very moment. So thank you, Jose Manuel, and thank you also, Karen, for sharing the question. There's another question which is very interesting about the digital angle of our conversation, which we said is part of being excellent and also part of these recent times. Going digital can help fill the gaps in learning caused by confinements in vocational schools. Any ideas or recommendations on how to encourage teachers to work more in e-learning mode? Who would like to take this one?
Okay,
Giovanni.
it's my turn. I have no an exact answer, of course, but I can say how our network behaves in this regard. As I said before, it's all based on mutual learning and collaboration. And in this dimension, one important aspect, and in this case I can insert my view on the difference among the centers, the ordinary centers and the TVET, the COVES, is the collaboration. One relevant aspect in this context is the collaboration that is created among the TVET providers, schools, universities, and polytechnics, and the industry and the world of work in general. This collaboration makes me to say that we have to transform, especially when we talk about the digitalization process, to transform the working places in learning places, or better, in digitalized learning places. That means learning places that are full of sensors and solutions, software solutions, and hardware parts and software parts that contribute to make the working space as a new ambient where you go not to work but to learn. In this regard, this collaboration that must be grow, must be then sourced among the companies and the TVET providers include also the involvement of the teachers and the learning by doing of the teacher that are involved. You can understand how this problem is big, the problem of the missing of skills, how it is big now, because you have the pandemic that is putting you in front of this dilemma, where students in many cases are more skilled than teachers in accessing to the solutions necessary to work in a different way or to communicate in a different way, and now they need to move on, but the teachers and the tutors, but they need to be supported. So the suggestion is that the support can arrive from companies and can be stimulated, putting the situations together. So changing the paradigm and not continuing to see the VET centers as something that is split, that is another dimension from the world of work. So putting them together. And I would like to end this reflection with this concept that the Skillman promote about the role of the centers of vocational excellence, and this is something for us very important. For this I was wishing to have the opportunity to make this reflection. I think that the most important difference in our approach is that the COVEs are leaders at regional level of what David Finegold defined like the skills ecosystem. So he talked about high skills ecosystem. I would like to simplify this. Skills ecosystem, regional skills ecosystem with one clear leader that is the TVET Center. TVET Center has to collect around it companies, policymakers, experts, professionals, and even other VET providers. So this leadership at regional dimension is I think the most important and in many cases missing capacity of our TVET providers. They have to take the leadership, they have to provoke innovation, and most of all they have to drive the identification, the research identification and distribution of information concerning the skills for the future, because these skills must be detected from local area and not only by the analysis of the market, or even worse, I think the analysis of the job places available. No, that's good, okay, but it's not enough. You need to lead a process where the territory is able to detect, understand what are the skills for the future, because these skills must be linked to the regional development strategies. And for this reason, it's very important that the leaders of this process, the TVET centers, have to interact with policymakers, because policymakers decide where to put the efforts, where to put the funds. And when you sit around the table and you discuss a new curricula for your school, all the components must be represented, because this curricula will represent the society of tomorrow. The curricula of today is the society of tomorrow. And we want to be, as pedagogists, as TVET I don't know, practitioners, experts, researchers. I think we have to say our word on the future of the society, defining now the curricula for our current students. So this is an important difference in my mind. Sorry for this emphasis, because for us it's very important.
On the contrary, I think I really like emphasis also, because it's very genuine, and to be honest, there's very enthusiastic comments about your speech in the chat. So our friends are saying that what you said is very practical and very true. And before going back to Jose Manuel for one conclusive question, I'd like to link what you just said to Najib, asking Najib, how are the curricula of today that you are developing in your center are building the society of tomorrow? How are you seeing this being put into practice at ESITH in Morocco? I'm very interested. You're muted, Najib.
Yes. Well, indeed, our final decision was that, or our final reflection was that distance learning is a reality which will stay, not fully as it has been during the confinement, but something that we will be officialized and standardized and adopted. So this is a decision, and we made it known to everyone who is considered as a stakeholder, especially our teachers and trainers. So which means also that we have to invest in infrastructure to make it possible, in the sense that investing in smart classrooms, like smart boards, etc., and where the teacher will not be obliged to confine the teacher. And this is something that really attracts my attention, the fact that we have done well to think a lot about students' mental health and morale during the confinement, but few people spoke about the morale and the mental health of trainers. I think this is equally important. And to my view, the solution is not to confine teachers, but to provide for them the necessary technological tools where they can do their jobs correctly in a smart environment. It can be a mini classroom equipped with smart board and cameras, etc., and where the teacher will be moving and having maybe opposite to him students with their faces being logged in, such as we are doing now, and being at least virtually in contact with them with their faces, not only talking from a remote place. So this is one. And the second thing is that we are trying to connect with tech companies, because the labor market is also a new challenge and a new reality which emerged out of the pandemic, is that the labor market also is changing. So in this sense, we are trying to strike as many as possible partnerships with those rising industries in the digital world. I don't want to name commercial brands, but those which are really hiring and those who are taking more and more interns and placements.
Thank you very much, Najib. It's very interesting to to have linked the perspective shared from by Giovanni with what's being put in place at ESITH. And there's also hello from Morocco by Ikram. So thanks for this for sharing all these perspectives. And I think we're close to the end of this conversation. And I'd like to slowly close the circle by going back to Jose Manuel, because we've mentioned that we have now 144 centers of excellence in the network, both in the EU, in the neighboring countries, in some African countries. So what's happening now? What's in the pipeline? What's next for 2021? And how can the ENE network help contribute tackling all the issues that we've raised in this discussion? Jose Manuel.
Thank you, Daria. I'm going to build previous to introduce something that we will introduce in our conference tomorrow, 11 March and 12 March. I will have the privilege to close with my colleague Manuela this conference. And we will present and we will discuss during these 2 days also what we did in 2020 and in 21. But I wanted to build also previously to fully answer the question on what we talk about teachers, the digitalization, which is the theme of the focus of the theme of today, is really bringing, I would say, and the COVID, all together. So because the consequence of what we are experiencing and living now, I would say we still don't know fully. So we will need to bring more evidence. Because previously to the COVID, experience of European Training Foundation here and there, with our partner countries in particular, always our family of partner countries working on excellence, informed us that so countries also moved to excellence as an ambition to reform the scope of the institution and the network of the institution. So meaning that even the public resources invested in vocational training for many countries were not well used, so were inefficient. So in these terms, many countries thought that excellence factor, so making vocational institutions more excellent, or focusing on excellence, so could also make discuss on rationalizing or optimizing the networks. Okay, so somehow the COVES are bringing also to the policy discussion and to the policy makers, the dilemma of how many institutions we need in the country, if many of them are empty, So on the other hand, the institutions that are showing are good performance, are performers, are excellent itself. They have queues of students that wants to get there, So this discussion also touched the issue of teachers community. Teachers community is challenged by this from years ago, but I would say now the digital revolution plus the COVID is bringing, a bigger dilemma to the floor also of the teachers community in terms of update professional capacities, update many skills that as my colleague said, perhaps in many cases students, or let's say the vocational capacity of students are now leading what perhaps that teachers should learn. So this is also, in the evidence on the discussion about learning outcomes. The learning outcomes of today, are more concentrated, on generic programs, vocational programs that are more specific, but whilst the occupations, the specific skills of the occupations are broad, because in this case also we talk about the key competences and the integration of, lifelong learning itself, dimension on curricula, etc. So having said that, I think there is a pending debate in many countries on the role of teachers, and I profit also to remind that the European Training Foundation, we are running some projects on this. It is a topic for our NN network, and I will take note of this question to pass to my great colleague Julian Stanley, who is leading some of these approaches in our team and working with other teams in European Training Foundation. So basically, what we do is we are a big community of practice now, as Daria said, with 144 Center of Excellence from 18 countries, African countries, member states. We are engaging basically so the big rationale of ENE is learning together, is sharing experience together, is bringing evidence about different themes that are surrounded. The logics of Center of Vocational Excellence in this respect We have 8 big themes, plus also entrepreneurship dimension, which is also a very important issue for Center of Excellence, and we are going to integrate the discussion also on entrepreneurial centers of excellence, so which some countries are particularly touching also this point, you know. So Center of Excellence are also providing, you know, the ground for bringing the culture of entrepreneurship in vocational education, which is something that for many years we wanted, but we don't see in normal schools in many cases. So what we provide is a platform of exchange based on doing partnerships among countries about different themes, which are, you know, Industry 4.0, lifelong learning, entrepreneurship, autonomy and public-private partnerships, digitalization, green skills. So we have a number of thematic menu that we are engaging in partnership, doing studies. We are doing peer learning activities, building tools, you know, methodologies. But basically, what we want to rise and our ambition is to make a big round of partnerships for exchanging practice and learning by doing, and learning one from others together in different cultures, different ambitions, different cultural and socioeconomic contexts in every country.
And this is what
this
will
is the ground. This is the big ground.
And
network. It's a network, but also the particularities unique as international one in excellence, and also is not new on the fact that it is composed also by institutions. So it's a network of educational institutions also. We don't have to forget this, but of course it has the dimension of national and country dimension, which is very important for the nomination process and also for the recognition of the role of the institutions by ministries, government, social partners in the country. So, and for that, I'm also very happy today to see Najib and Giovanni also, who knows very well what are the good institutions in the manufacturing sector.
Thank you, Manuel. We are close to the end of our conversation, but for those who are interested, we will share. I kindly ask my colleague Michaela to share again the link to the NA network on the ETF's website. We will continue the conversation closed doors for the next 2 days at the NA conference, but we will share the highlights of the discussions on the European Training Foundation's website. So keep on following us. I'd like to thank also a follower who is saying, thank you very much. We need much more center of excellence and we will have lower unemployment. Education systems must become faster and more adaptable to changes in the world of business as soon as possible. Thank you very much and best regards from Belgrade, Fashion Apparel Cluster of Serbia. There's a series of thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you all, the distinguished speakers of today's conversation. Professor Najib Hamouti, head of the Career Center at ESITH in Morocco. Thank you, Najib.
You're welcome.
Giovanni Crisona, leader at Skillman.eu from Italy. Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And Jose Manuel Galvin Arribas, team leader of the NA network at the European Training Foundation. Thank you, Jose Manuel.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Spasiba большое. Muchas gracias. Grazie mille.
And vielen Dank, and whatever else we can say, merci beaucoup, it was already said. So thanks a lot to those of you who have been following this conversation. We'll be back next Wednesday for another LearningConnects chat for the learners community, and have a nice afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.